The following podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. Like what you hear? Want more of it ad-free, uncensored, and earlier? Sign up today at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and start getting more for as little as $2 a month.
Time circuits on. Going back. Uploading hosts. Obtaining data on the best and worst of professional wrestling. Synchronizing hosts. Welcome to Wrestling with History.
Hey everybody, it's Wrestling with History. I'm at Adam Conta, and joining me today for this free portion of the podcast is my good friend, Referee RJ. Ref, RJ, buddy.
Hello.
Thank you so much
on?
for being with us here. Head referee in many different companies, specifically PCW, Professional Championship Wrestling, which makes its return May 25th to Brock Vegas. I'm looking very forward to the show.
Awesome. Yes, we all are. We got our pro wrestling Megatron. There's 5 of us. We got our Maddie, Sean McMillan, Alan Irish, and then Jonathan Largy. We're all coming together to put together this show, bring back pro wrestling to Brockville, and we're really looking forward to it. We got some great matches, I should say. What am I talking about? Good matches. These matches are great. We got the main event, Sheldon Jean, Dino Benjamin, 2 out of 3 falls. Good stuff. Love it.
You know, some fans may not be aware of this, but I had a chance to chat with you over the weekend when we were together at the Chinlock Napanee show.
Yes, that was super fun. I very much enjoyed that.
And you can hear part of that interview tomorrow on the Wrestling Show. Of course, if you're one of our patrons, well, you'll get to hear the full thing, the whole shebang with you and a very special guest who just dropped in unexpectedly as well.
What up?
You're not gonna tease a little bit who the special guest might be?
The special guest?
Yeah. No.
No. No.
You don't want to give him a little rub here?
Was that like a hype joke?
It wasn't, but it can be if it'll pop whoever's listening. So
who the hell cares? Yeah, we had our guest, Big Shug Sean McMillan. He was hovering around, so we waved him on over, and he said whatever he had to say.
and you can hear that tomorrow here at WrestleMedia.ca or at Patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca, where you can put a few ducats in the bucket and get a lot more. Over on Patreon, we were just talking about April the 30th. Today, it's Thursday for our free episode. It's now May the 2nd, so we are going to go back in time. But before we do that, I want to talk about a couple of upcoming appearances for WrestleMedia. We are going to be in the house on Saturday, May the 11th at Rock Solid Wrestling's Danger Zone event at the Collingwood Curling Club in Collingwood, Ontario, featuring a submission match for the Canadian Heavyweight Championship. Jake O'Reilly with Asher Benjamin in his corner will face the Canadian Heavyweight Champion Impact Wrestling star Cody Deaner with former WWE Intercontinental Champion and UFC Hall of Famer Ken Shamrock in his corner. Tickets are on sale now at rocksolidwrestling.ticket.ca. Then coming up on Sunday, May the 19th, it's the Cottage Country Comic-Con at the Mariposa Conference Center in Orillia, Ontario, featuring WWE Hall of Famers The Honky Tonk Man and Greg the Hammer Valentine, Rhythm and Blues. Visit cottagecountrycomiccon.com for more details. Just rolls right off the tongue. Actually, on the Patreon show, we did a little talking about Greg the Hammer Valentine. So a little bit of a teaser there for what's coming up on the 19th. Of course, we want you guys to check out PCW's Rising Tide on May the 25th. That is a Saturday in Brockville. Where is the event happening, RJ?
It is happening at 180. I always get my date or my addresses mixed up. 180 Park Street at the Royal Canadian Legion in Brockville, Ontario.
Don't forget to check them out as well. And of course, Saturday, June 15th, PCW will be represented along with WrestleMedia at Chinlock Wrestling and House of Hardcore's Legends Convention and Chinlock 5 event from the Leon Center in Kingston, Ontario, featuring Bret the Hitman Hart, the Brainbusters, Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, Mark Henry, Billy Gunn, Jimmy Hart, Tugboat, Swoggle, Jimmy Corderas, Tommy Dreamer, and who knows who else. They recently announced that the Chinlock Rumble will be making its return, so I'm sure we will see some big names participate in that. We're going to crown the first ever Cale Murphy Memorial Champion. It's going to be a huge event, so go and get your tickets right now. Visit chinlockwrestling.com for that. We also want to remind you to visit our YouTube channel. We got some new videos featuring us taking part of National Canadian Film Day, where we attended Galaxy Cinemas here in North Bay, where they screened both Wrestler and Hitman Hart, Wrestling with Shadows, a pair of Canadian documentaries about our favorite sport, the sport of kings. Also on Ropes to Reels, we had a reaction video to the new Hobbs and Shaw trailer. Those are now up on YouTube. Go check them out and subscribe to our channel and get that little notification bell ringing every time we put out a new video. Finally, if you want to get in on some contesting we've got going on, head over to WrestleMedia.ca and subscribe to our free newsletter for your chance to win a pair of floor seat tickets to that Chinlock 5 event we've been talking about. It's free. It keeps you up to date and in the know. It's your best way to be a part of the WrestleMedia revolution. Check it out right now at WrestleMedia.ca. All right, RJ, if you're ready, I'm ready. I'm sorry.
One more thing about Rising Tide.
Please do. Yeah, no.
We have received a generous donation from I was going to call them friends, but they're more or less our family. Our family at Chinlock Wrestling have generously donated 2 VIP passes to Chinlock 5 on June 15th.
Whoa.
So if you purchase your ticket for Rising Tide, you are automatically entered in a draw to win. You and a friend can go to Chinlock 5.
As Bray Wyatt would say, wowie zowie. That's pretty impressive.
That gimmick.
Yeah, me too. I'm a big fan.
I'm digging it.
And the VIP package, that includes like some meet and greets, right?
Oh, yeah. As far as I know, the VIP is the headliner.
Bret Hart.
It gets you access to, the headliner, Bret Hart. It gets you access to all the legends that you'd like to meet for that day. And it gets you access to the show in the evening.
It's everything you could want in one package, and you can get it over at Rising Tide during that event. So please go and check that out. That's a huge, huge deal. Get your ticket for a night of incredible action in Brockville, and then, who knows, you could be getting yourself a VIP pass for an incredible night of action and legendary memories being made on June the 15th. Before we go back in through the dates of May the 2nd, we're going to talk about what happened last week on Wrestling with History. One of the things we talked about was the Light Heavyweight Championship, specifically when Dean Malenko defeated Scotty 2 Hotty to win the belt. And we asked you, our listeners, who is your favorite WWF Light Heavyweight Champion? We had a couple of different answers. From Darren No Fun on Instagram, he said Tajiri, which is one I always forget about. I always forget that Tajiri was a light heavyweight champion. So, Darren, No Fun, thank you for reminding me. I appreciate that. We also had Matt Universe 86 on Instagram said Taka Michinoku, which was also the sentiment of our very own Michael Walsh from The Lasting Mark. He said, gotta be Taka. And of course, Matt Sukram, being on the ball, replied to that comment saying that in an alternate universe, Vince is screaming that line as Taka walks to the ramp and stares down The Undertaker, who is standing inside hell in a cell, which is such a great image. I never want it to leave my brain. RJ, I want to ask, do you have a favorite light heavyweight champion?
He's not so much I think he was more or less the cruiserweight champion when they had their cruiserweight belt.
Okay.
But Hurricane Helms.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to love Hurricane, right? So, I mean, you're right. Yeah. Not technically a light heavyweight champion, but part of that lineage. So, good on you. And I love Hurricane Helms. He's great. I got one of his figures in one of my my loot boxes for my pro wrestling package pile driver series where I do unboxing videos, and it's a great little figure. I love it. We also
because like at first, I'm sorry.
No.
Go ahead.
No,
what I was going to say was irrelevant.
No, not at all. Please go ahead.
Well, at first when you asked that, I was like, was there another light heavyweight champion other than Taka?
There were more than a few.
But yeah, I guess Christian held it. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, that was a very ignorant statement on my part.
Well, maybe just uninformed, you know. There was, if I'm not mistaken, there was, you're right, Christian. I think S.A. Rios held it for a while, as did Dwayne Gill. Christian, we already mentioned.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Scotty Tuhati. Jerry Lynn was the light heavyweight champion for a while, as was Tajiri, who we mentioned. Jeff Hardy. And I'm trying to think, X-Pac definitely held it for a little bit. Dean Malenko, which I may have already mentioned in that list. There's more than a few. It actually has a much longer lineage than a lot of people remember, myself included.
I forgot that 2000 era when Dean Malenko was the light heavyweight champion. I've watched that recently too. So.
Well, you would have remembered if you were listening to Wrestling with History last week.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good call.
We also asked why Zeus was so mad at Hulk Hogan during the 1989 feud between the two men, and we specifically asked for wrong answers only. Matthew Goose Sukram had said that Hulk asked him if he could borrow his shoulder pads, and Zeus just had them dry cleaned. Well, I think that would make me mad, too. So, yeah, that could be an answer. Anthony Fletcher, 568 on Instagram, the voice of Northland Wrestling, who has a event the same day as PCW over on May the 25th. Of course, they will be here in North Bay, Ontario, so a little bit of a different travel schedule for those guys. If you're in the North Bay area, go check them out, and if you're in the Brockville area, go and check out PCW. Plenty of wrestling in Ontario, and it's a wonderful time in our lives. He said the reason is because he stole his thunder. Now, here's the thing. That seems like a very practical, realistic answer. I want to think about which way we could take this in a direction where that's an unrealistic answer. For example, I like to imagine that Thunder is the name of his dog, and Hulk Hogan stole Zeus's dog.
Oh, that's not a Hogan thing to do. You never know.
Hey, listen, brother. You know, there was a time and a place when Hulk Hogan was a bad guy. And I mean, if you watch Mr. Nanny Back, there is a scene where a guy is throwing a dog into the ocean for no reason. So I mean, you gotta take these things with a grain of salt. Is all I'm saying. All right, RJ, are you ready to fire up the time machine and go back in time and see what was going on in years past on this date?
Yeah, let's do this. Beep, boop, boop. That was the sound of the time machine.
Let's start with 1987. The American Wrestling Association presented Super Clash 2 from the Cow Palace in Daly City, California. Not a huge turnout, just 2,800 in attendance for the event. I only say that when you compare it to another show that happened in 1987, WrestleMania 3, rumored to be over, 90,000 people in that venue. So a little bit of a disparagence there. Of course, some of the featured matches on the show included Sherry Martel defeating Medusa Miceli to retain the AWA World Women's Championship, Kurt Hennig defeating Nick Bockwinkel to win the AWA World Heavyweight Championship, and of course, the classic that everyone remembers, Jimmy Snuka and Russ Francis defeating the Terrorist and the Mercenary. Okay, I kind of just threw that last one in there for giggles, but it did happen. It was recorded that day. Let's talk about the big matches we mentioned before that. Sherry Martel and Medusa Miceli. You're a younger guy, RJ, so you may not have grown up in a time in which Sherry Martel was a prominent woman on your television set. She was in mine. She definitely was a big part of my growing up, becoming a man, if you will. But you might have gone back and seen some of her stuff. Have you ever seen Sherry Martel actually get down and dirty and wrestle?
Not in matches that didn't have like a gimmick tied to it.
Like the mixed tag
Yeah.
match from WrestleMania 6.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, Medusa
So, like,
Maselli,
I
I
never-
imagine you've probably seen more of her stuff.
Yes.
Because, of course, she was Alundra Blaze in the WWF
Yeah.
and then would use the name Medusa back in WCW. Were you...
And I've also seen a lot of her gimmicky.
There you go. Were you more of a Medusa fan or more of a Alundra Blaze fan?
I would have said, looking back on it now, definitely more Alundra Blaze.
And is that just because like she was who you grew up with?
I grew up with Medusa.
Okay.
But like at the time, it was more or less, she's a gorgeous looking woman.
Yeah, there's
Like,
no doubt
her
about that.
In-ring acumen didn't really matter that much to me at the time
Fair enough.
when I was watching it.
Okay.
But now, going back, like I definitely preferred her work as Alundra Blaze in WWF than anything she did as Medusa in WCW.
Wow, crazy. But, hey, listen, I can see where you're coming from on that for sure. Hey, this is a commercial for patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca, where you can get early access to episodes of your favorite WrestleMedia shows, get full uncut and uncensored versions of your favorite shows, and more. Don't want to hear this commercial on your podcast anymore? Sign up at our main event tier and get these episodes ad-free. Want to hear your own commercial here instead of ours? We've got tiers for that too. Visit patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca and join the WrestleMedia revolution today. Now, Curt Hennig, Nick Bockwinkel, totally different story for me. Obviously, not as physically appealing to me as Sherry Martel and Medusa, but boy, appealing to me in terms of their in-ring acumen. Of course, Nick Bockwinkel, I think one of the best bell-to-bell workers of all time. I think that the guy doesn't get enough credit. Curt Hennig, clearly heralded as one of the greatest in-ring technicians, and these guys could work any place, any time, and give you an excellent contest. And this was no different. I love their matches. It's not the match I remember these two having. I think I probably remember their earlier matches a little bit more, but I'll love any match between Curt Hennig and Nick Bockwinkel. These guys have always put on my favorite AWA matches. Have you ever seen any of these clashes between Hennig and Nick Bockwinkel?
I have not, but I'm definitely going to go out of my way to check them out.
You can see them on the network. They do have them there in the AWA section, so if you are interested in checking this match out, go ahead. We may actually have a link to that match over on WrestleMedia.ca as you listen to this, so if we do, go and have a little look-see on that and educate yourself about Curt Hennig and Nick Bockwinkel. Let's move on to 1994, and we've got another mainstay of the AWA, Larry Zbyszko, as he defeats Lord Steven Regal to win the WCW World TV Championship at a TV taping in Atlanta, Georgia. The interesting thing about this is that the title change would not air until 26 days later on television. How do you feel, what's your take on wrestling promotions that tape real far in advance for their shows? Do you think, obviously on one hand, it's a very smart cost-cutting measure, but on the other hand, you do really run some risks there with the idea of, title changes, and I don't know, do you think a company could realistically do something like that today, or do you think in the dawn of the internet, it's too much of a risk?
They definitely couldn't do it today. Not with the internet running as rampant as it does.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's definitely more risk.
Obviously, if cost-cutting measure versus risk,
Yep.
and definitely support a promotion saving money.
Yeah, look, well, you understand that better than most now.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. You can say that, yes.
Just 2 years later, at a WCW Worldwide taping in Orlando, Florida, Dean Malenko would defeat Shinjiro Otani to win the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. Airing on May 16th, this is the only time the Cruiserweight title changed hands on an episode of Worldwide. And it's also the last time any WCW title would change hands on the syndicated series, which by this point was kind of a filler program for WCW, which had Nitro and would soon end up having Thunder. So a couple of fun things to mention about this contest. I always forget that Shinjiro Otani was the first ever cruiserweight champion. He won the title in the tournament final in Japan. Malenko was actually eliminated in the tournament. Of course, Malenko was the first American to hold the title, and I think, as I've stated many, many, many times on this program, doesn't get the credit he deserves for adapting and bringing that cruiserweight style to North America and America specifically. What's your favorite WCW cruiserweight champion? Because we talked about Hurricane Helms. Is he also your favorite WCW cruiserweight champion as Sugar Shane?
Favorite WCW cruiserweight champion, obviously, Rey Mysterio.
I guess it's kind of hard not to like him, right? Although I don't know, I would also have to give some props to guys like Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, who also had the championship. Again, I'm a big Dean Malenko fan during this era. I think was great. And, it's funny because we just finished talking about Medusa. She also held the Cruiserweight Championship for a short while.
She did.
I completely forgot about that. I'll even put a guy like Juventud Guerrera in that category. I think Juvi doesn't get enough credit for being a great Cruiserweight champion. And I think he did that title really, really proud at the time for sure. But really interesting stuff that happened there at the worldwide tapings. Yeah. Anything else you wanted to kind of mention about that, about the Cruiserweight Championship or anything?
Well, I was going to say, because any time that I growing up as a wrestling fan, I was a WWF guy.
Yeah.
And, a lot of WCW stuff, I didn't see until, well after it had happened.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back on it, and when I think WCW Cruiserweight, I always think of that Halloween Havoc with Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero.
Of course.
And that anytime the subject of WCW Cruiserweight Champion comes up, it's always Rey Mysterio.
Well, I can't say that I blame you. He's truly one of the greatest of all time. And you're right, that match between those two at Halloween Havoc, one of the best. This match between Malenko and Otani is actually pretty good. We are going to put that link up at WrestleMedia.ca, so go and check that out. If you get a little bit of time, it's pretty good, and it shows exactly why this division was going to become the sensation that it did. Let's jump ahead 4 more years to 2000. More WCW talk, this time at a Thunder taping in Memphis, Tennessee. Ric Flair last eliminated Shane Douglas in what would be a 41-man, quote-unquote, guerrilla warfare battle royal to earn a WCW World Heavyweight Championship match at the Great American Bash, which was only 4 days away. So let's put this in context. One of the biggest shows of the year for WCW, 4 days away. They don't have their contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. Yikes.
WCW in 2000 in a nutshell.
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right about that. So some of the names that appeared in this match were Hulk Hogan, Sting, Lex Luger, Jeff Jarrett, DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, Bryan Adams, Brian Clark, Buff Bagwell, Ernest Miller, Chris Candido, Scott Steiner, Mike Awesome, The Wall, Billy Kidman, Sean Stasiak, Hugh Morris, Vampiro, Chris Kanyon, Horace Hogan, Kurt Hennig, Conan, Disco Inferno, Bam Bam Bigelow, Johnny the Bull, Big
Take a
Vito,
breath, brother.
Ron Harris, Don Harris, Stevie Ray, Big T. Oh, yeah, Big T. Can't forget about him. Cash, Norman Smiley, Tank Abbott, Lash LaRue, Van Hammer, Chavo Guerrero Jr., Mona. Yes, Mona. Asia, Medusa, Jim Duggan, Bret Hart, and Randy Macho Man Savage, who was making his return to WCW programming for the first time since October 25th, 1999. This would also be his last appearance. Savage would never again appear for WCW before it folded 10 months later. So let's talk about this, because if you were watching WCW at this time, first of all, my condolences. Secondly, this was in the middle of the New Blood versus the Millionaires Club storyline. And if you're not familiar with that storyline, the New Blood was a group of young, up-and-coming talent in a lot of cases, or basically talent that had never gotten their chance at the main event. And they were going up against the Millionaires Club, which was essentially all the main eventers. Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Kevin Nash, Diamond Dallas Page, Sting. And they have this guerrilla warfare match, and suddenly out comes Randy Savage, who would be considered a Millionaire Club guy. He gets in, tears house over everybody, throwing everybody left and right over the top rope, and then they're just like, yep, okay, he's gone. Why would you do that?
Why is
why
sky blue? Like,
and
why did WCW do anything back then?
And I mean, it's funny because when you look at that list of talent, I mean, there's obviously some names there that you're like, feel like maybe they don't scream out, world championship material, like a Van Hammer or a Mona.
Well, like I was gonna say, you were listing those names: Mona, Asia, Medusa, and I was like, wow, those sound like stripper names. And then like Jim Duggan, Randy Savage, I was like, ah.
Of course, Mona would go on to be Molly Holly, so she had some wrestling ability, as did Medusa. Asia, she was more of a body.
So much.
But, the point I'm making is that no one's going to sit there and think that a guy like a Johnny the Bull or a Norman Smiley is going to come out on top here. But looking back at some of the other names, my God, what a stacked event. Like, what a card, like, what a match. Hogan, Sting, Luger, DDP, Jeff Jarrett at the time. I mean, Scott Steiner, Randy Savage, Bret Hart, Jim Duggan. Like, holy moly, what a who's who in that match. Kurt Hennig, it goes on and on. But the point being that, this was a match that could have been you could have made this the main event of the Great American Bash.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you could have actually called it the Great American Bash, and I would have bought it. Now, I did want to point out something about the match itself that I thought was kind of cool, which was that basically as the ring was cleared of participants, more entrants would take their place. So you would have a certain number of guys in the ring, and as a guy would be eliminated. You know what it was like? It was like when you played No Mercy or WCW NWO Revenge, or even any of the wrestling video games where basically you can only have so many guys on screen. So you have to wait for someone to be eliminated before the next guy can come into the match.
That's probably where they got the idea for this match from.
It would not surprise me in the least. Have you ever thought about any of the potential matches that we missed out on for Randy Savage in WCW?
No, because didn't they give them all away on free TV?
I think you're right on that one. I think you might be right on that one. Yeah. Like just looking at this list, there's nobody really on here. I don't know. Savage and Vampiro might have been able to pull off a pretty cool match, but other than that, there's nobody out here that's really standing out to me.
Maybe Randy Savage and Mike Awesome. Maybe
Mike Awesome would have been an interesting opponent for him. Yeah, he could have worked with a nice big guy like that. Yeah,
or Candido,
or Norman Smiley.
Oh, yeah, I would have watched that.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll watch Norman Smiley in anything. That guy's great. All right.
Norman Smiley all day.
Let's jump one more time to 2008. Country Music Television announces that Hulk Hogan's Celebrity Championship Wrestling has been greenlit for their network. The series, produced by Eric Bischoff and Jason Hervey Productions, would be won by ex-basketball player Dennis Rodman, to the surprise of nobody. And it would only last for one season, also to the surprise of nobody. Did you get a chance to see any of this?
Nope.
It was a little bit of a train wreck.
No.
In a fun way.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
I mean, and the funny thing is, like, the celebrities who were involved with it, a lot of them were big wrestling fans and have been involved with wrestling in the past. Like Danny Bonaducci was one of the competitors, and he had done a match before. He is big into wrestling. Dustin Diamond, as we all know, big into wrestling and had done some work as well. Butterbean and was there, and I mean, look, I know why a guy like Dennis Rodman won and Butterbean didn't, because Dennis Rodman is Dennis Rodman, and he's a bigger name than Butterbean. So, I mean,
yeah.
But, a guy like Butterbean, I think, would be perfect for wrestling. And I mean, he's a huge wrestling fan, and he did the Brawl for All and stuff. So, yeah, I think the most interesting one on the show was Tiffany, because I'm like, the girl who did songs at the mall, like, why would she be doing this? But I guess it's because when I heard her name, I said the girl who does songs at the mall. So that, I guess, explains it right there. If they were going to redo this show today, who are some celebrities you'd like to see get in the ring with the Hulkster brother?
Oh man, that's a really hard question.
I know, that's why I asked it.
I feel like I'd just be, because I'd want the perfect answer, so I feel like I'd be spending all night here just thinking.
Do you know a rapper by the name of Lil Dicky?
Yes, I do.
I would like to see him in Celebrity Championship Wrestling. I mean, he's got a gimmick as it is, right? I think he would do well.
Yeah.
Honest to goodness, I mean, I don't know. People, here's a question. Here's a question then. Would you count the Insane Clown Posse as celebrities? Because technically they did wrestle, but they're also better known as rappers.
Yeah, but they also run like Juggalo Championship Wrestling, and
maybe I would. You know what I would do? I would have them be judges or coaches on the show,
or like the color commentary.
Oh my God! Okay, so here's the idea. Okay, have you ever seen The Ultimate Fighter?
All right. Yes.
Okay, so that's what we do, but it's Team Juggalo versus Team Arquette. Those are the coaches. Because they're former celebrities who have actually made a go of wrestling.
Yeah.
You don't sound impressed.
We gotta write this. We gotta write this down. No, I'm just the light bulbs, the fireworks are going off in my head. We gotta write this down and pitch it. Go to Netflix or something.
Forget Netflix. Jan!
Have we got the show for you?
Listen, he's bringing Eric Bischoff around the country, right? So, maybe this is the time to make the pitch. Be like, Eric, baby, come here, man. I got a money-making idea for you.
Follow him around country. Hey, Eric. That guy again.
You never know what could happen in the world of pro wrestling, and I would want to be a part of that movement. That's going to do it for us. We're actually going to take the time machine back to our own time. We can get back to our lives here. RJ, thanks so much for joining me on the show today, man. It was a real pleasure having you.
Man, thanks for having me. I'd like to do this again. This is awesome.
Thank you so much, listeners, for joining us. It means the world to us as well. If you want more talk like this on other days, please go ahead and visit patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca. Put a few ducats in the bucket to sponsor us each and every month, and you'll get even more. And you'll get it early as well, which is pretty cool. We want to thank you guys for joining us. Make sure that you go and you subscribe to our YouTube channel and our newsletter over at WrestleMedia.ca. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all of which you can find at our portal, our home, WrestleMedia.ca. RJ, anything you'd like to plug or shill before we sign off?
We've got a couple appearances for PCW. May 19th, Jim Duggan is going to be at Sequence Comics signing autographs. Oh! And we are hoping you might see a couple of freaks there.
Ask him about this 41 Guerrilla Warfare Battle Royal.
Okay, yeah, definitely. And we have, of course, PCW Rising Tide coming up on May 25th at the Royal Canadian Legion in Brockville, 180 Park Street. And also this kind of scatterbrained, but we are also going to be appearing at the Brockville Comic-Con, the Canadian Fan Expo, or
nice,
whatever they do. They do the touring conventions, and it's going to be at the Brockville Memorial Center at on May 18th. And admission to that event is $5. We're going to have a booth. We're going to be selling T-shirts and giving away, or not giving away, but selling tickets. And have the freaks there, talk to the freaks, say hello to Sideshow Jack.
Should be a good
say
time.
Hello to Taylor, maybe, if he says hi. Yeah, it'll be a great time. Loving it.
There you go, folks. Make sure that you check out all of PCW's stuff. And thank you so much for joining us again, RJ. Thank you for listening to us. And until we fire up the time machine once again, I'm at Adam Conta. That's referee RJ. And that's history.
Time circuits overload. Begin podcast self-destruct sequence.
1, 2, 3.
This has been a presentation of WrestleMedia, where everything is wrestling and wrestling is everything.
Here's what you're missing out on right now over at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca.
Like, I'd just love to be there and feel the energy from the crowd.
I
in
imagine
that moment.
There might have been a riot in Baltimore that night. And then there was also a wrestling match where people were upset. Want more? Sign up now at patreon.com/WrestleMedia.ca.